Good evening and welcome to Vacation Bible School at Suburban Bethlehem Lutheran Church. I'm Miss Kay and I'd like to welcome you all. As you can tell, I'm standing in the middle of a lab. Actually, it's not just any lab, it's a miracle lab. And today and tomorrow we're going to be talking about miracles that God does. Before we start the video, please make sure that you visit our website, www.deeplyrootedtogrow.org, where you will find all the supplies that you need listed. You'll find a family service project challenge we have for you, and you will find some songs that you can sing together as a family. So we hope that you enjoy our VBS this year. We're very excited about it. And now I would like to introduce you to the famous Albert Shoeshine.
Well, hello everyone. I just want to welcome you all here to the Miracle Lab. Yes, this VBS, we're going to be talking about some of God's miracles. We're going to look at 2 today, and then we're also going to look at 2 on Thursday. But before we get to those miracles, I would like you to join me in this Miracle Lab because I would like to show you something that is just amazing. I've been working on this for over 2 years and I finally got it perfected. I'm going to show you something here. This is just an ordinary piece of paper, just like you have on your printers at home. And I just bent it into a little crease like that. And if you watch this, you can do this at home too if you'd like. All right, so I'm going to get it all set. Now we're going to make a hypothesis. That would be a scientific word for our guess, our educated guess of what's going to happen. I'm going to take a book. I'm going to set it right on top of this piece of paper. Have you made a guess about what's going to happen? Oh my goodness, the paper just flattened right out. Was that your guess? Was that your hypothesis? Well, I'm going to change this just a little bit. I'm now going to take a piece of paper and now I'm going to roll it all up into a tube like this. And I'm going to put a little tape on it just so it all stays together. And then when I put that tube down now on the table, I've not changed anything. That same piece of paper, it's just rolled up into a tube. Let's make our hypothesis. What is going to happen when I put this book now on this piece of paper? Look at that. Some people might call that a miracle, but it's not a miracle. I can even make it even, look at this, I'll take my wonderful teeth I have here. I'm going to put my teeth on it too. What do you think? Oh boy, it's still standing up, and even to challenge this paper even more. Amazing! That is amazing! Oh, it is amazing. And again, you could try this at home, but it is not a miracle. It's not a miracle because even though it's really fantastic, it's something that I can do. It's actually something that you can do at home. And that is then not a miracle. A miracle is something that only God Himself can do. So we're going to be talking about those miracles and learning from them. In fact, you can learn a number of things from miracles. I hope you do this week. One of the things that you can know about miracles is that God can do anything. We have a God who is in control of the whole universe. And also, miracles can teach us that we can trust God because He can do anything. When we go to God in prayer, we know that He can answer our prayers. Also then, we know that we have a God that can provide for all of our needs, whatever they might be. And even miracles teach us about God and how we can best follow His ways. As I said, this week we're going to look at 4 different miracles. Today we're going to look at 2 miracles, and both of those miracles deal with animals. One of them is going to be a fish, which I believe you also have available to you, and a second miracle talks about a donkey. Well, let me just ask you a question to start talking about our first miracle. Have any of you ever gone fishing? Oh, I hope some of you have. Fishing is a wonderful thing to be able to do. Now, I would like to tell you a fish story. Yes, a fish story, but this is going to be different than some fish stories, because you know some fishermen tell fish stories, but they're really exaggerating. They're really making things up. But today's fish story is a true fish story. It comes from Matthew chapter 17, verses 24 to 27. And it's called the miracle of a coin in the fish's mouth. Now, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of taxes. Maybe your parents are more aware of taxes than maybe you are. But taxes are something that we as grown-ups, we pay to help run our government. It's not something that we like to do, but is something that is important for us to do. Well, one day when Jesus and his disciples were in Capernaum, tax collectors came up to Peter, and they asked Peter a kind of a strange question. They said, does your leader, does Jesus, does he pay taxes? And he said, well, of course Jesus pays taxes. And so when Peter went back to where Jesus and the disciples were, Jesus, of course, being true God, knew what Peter already was asked. And so Jesus asked Peter, from whom, if you are paying taxes, if a king, is expecting you to pay taxes to him, would he get taxes from his subjects, or would he get taxes from his sons? And Peter said, well, of course, the subjects would pay the tax. He would not expect taxes to be paid from the sons. Well, Jesus did normally pay the tax, but this time he did something really strange. He said, where could we get that money to pay those taxes? He said, well, sometimes if you think about it, where would you get money to maybe pay for something? Well, you could work, right? You could work, and then from that money from that work you get paid, and then you could take that money and then pay your taxes. Or maybe you could get a gift. Sometimes you get gifts, or do you get allowance? Then if you had some money, then you could use that money to spend on something, right? Or some people, when they need money, you know what they do? They go to a bank. Well, do you know what Jesus did? He sent Peter to a bank to get money. Now, this bank, though, wasn't a bank like you might go to, that has money in it. This bank was on the shoreline of a sea. And he sent him there because he told Peter, you know what? When you go down, I want you to go to the sea, and I want you to go fishing. And when you go fishing, what you're going to do is you're going to catch a fish, and that fish is going to have money in his mouth, a coin in his mouth. Now, if you were Peter and someone told you to go down, if you want money, go down to the water, to the sea, and go fishing, and I will tell you that when you go fishing, you're going to catch a fish that has money in his mouth, would you believe him? Would you do that? Maybe not, because that is totally unbelievable. But Peter did. He went down to that sea. He went fishing just as Jesus asked. And can you guess what he caught? Yes, he caught a fish, just like this one. And can you believe it? That fish had a coin in his mouth. So Peter took that coin. That coin was worth all the taxes that he had to pay and Jesus had to pay together. Now, you can also put that coin into your fish that you have home, and you can put that into your mouth, in his mouth too. And remember that this was a miracle. This was something that only God could do. I mean, how could anybody else but God do that? So what was Jesus teaching Peter? Well, one of the things that he was teaching Peter that we can also learn today was that truly Jesus was true God, because only he could do it. And also what Jesus teaches us in this parable is also that even though he didn't have to, he was the son that wouldn't really have to pay the taxes, he still did that. He still lived under the law of the land. It shows us that our government and our law is important for us to follow. And also that our parents, that God has been blessed us with, have been given authority over us to also listen to and obey. And it also showed Peter that he truly can trust Jesus, even when he's asking him to do something that we would think is impossible. Because we have a God who can do the impossible. That's a great lesson for us also to know as we look at these miracles. Well, the second miracle today, again, as I said, involves an animal. But this animal is a donkey. Now, let me explain a little bit about this situation. Well, we have a prophet, and this prophet is called Balaam. And Balaam was asked by a king, the king of Moab. His name was Balak, this king. And the king of the Balak saw all these Israelites that were going from, they were wandering around in the wilderness, and they were going to the promised land, and they camped outside of King Balak's kingdom. And Balak was worried. He was concerned that the Israelites were going to take over his kingdom. So he summoned Balaam. Balaam was that prophet I talked about. He was a prophet, but he had turned away from God. But he was still very powerful. It was said of Balaam that if he blessed something, they knew it would always be blessed. If he cursed something, it would always be cursed. And so Balak wanted Balaam to curse the Israelites so they would not conquer him. So he sent some of his helpers to go and talk to Balaam. He gave him some money to go and help out, and help save the people by cursing the Israelites. And Balaam says, well, I can't do that unless I check with God first. So he went and prayed with God. He said, God, what am I supposed to do here? And God told him, no, the Israelites are my promised people. You will not go. I will not allow you to go and help out and curse my people. So he told the helpers that came from Balak, he said, no, go back and tell Balak that I can't do that. Well, Balak was set, and he said, well, you go back again. I'm going to send you with more money, and you tell him that I will give him even half of my kingdom if he comes. Now, Balaam was a little bit greedy, so this was sounding pretty good to him, but he didn't want to go against what God's wishes were, so he went to talk to God again. And this time God told him, go ahead, you can go, but you can't say anything unless I tell you. You must tell them what I say. So Balaam was kind of excited because he was also anticipating they'll keep this money. So he got on his donkey and he started heading over to Moab to help out or to deliver God's message. But on the way, God got upset because he could tell that that greed was starting to get into his head, and he was thinking about how much profit he could make as he did this. And so God wanted to stop him. His heart was not in the right spot. So he sent an angel with a sword, and that he was actually commanded to kill Balaam. But as he was traveling, the donkey could see the angel. So the donkey stopped, and he wouldn't move on. And so Balaam got very angry, and he beat the donkey and made him go. And finally the donkey got around that angel. But that angel came again, that angel with that sword, ready to kill Balaam. And this time, again, the donkey tried to squeeze by, and he squeezed Balaam's leg into the wall that was right next to them. Again, Balaam was so upset, he started beating his donkey again and yelling at him and screaming at him, wondering why he was not obeying him. And then a third time it happened. A third time, this angel came, and he was right in front of Balaam again, ready to kill him. This time, the donkey had nowhere to go because he was squeezed between just this narrow passageway. He just fell down. And then Balaam again was so angry that he really started to beat him. But then a miracle happened. God gave the donkey the ability to talk. And he spoke to Balaam. He says, "Why are you beating me? Haven't I always been faithful to you? Haven't I always done what you have wanted me to do? Have I ever turned my back on you?" And finally, Balaam realized that he was being blinded. He was being blinded by his greed. He was being blinded by his anger. But as he was touched and realized what he was doing was wrong, his eyes were opened to see this angel that was sitting right in front of him. This angel that had a sword. And that angel told Balaam, "Why did you do that to your donkey? Your donkey was only sent to save your donkey was acting that way because he wanted to save your life." And so Balaam said, "I am so sorry. I see that I sinned against God and against my donkey. I let my greed and my anger just blind me. But now I see." So the angel of the Lord, that one with the sword, did not kill Balaam. He said, "Just remember, when you go, you need to speak the Lord's words." And when he did that, he did not curse the Israelites, but he blessed them. 3 times he blessed them. Well, what can we learn from this story? You know, have you ever wanted something so much that you didn't do what God wanted you to do? Has that ever happened to you? Maybe you were blinded to what God's wisdom would be. But maybe you then realized that what you were trying to do was just for yourself and it wasn't what God wanted. And so you also thought and asked for forgiveness. And then you learned that it's important to follow God's way. And also I think we see how God works in many ways to bring us a message. It's not always through the Bible. Of course it is through the Bible. But it's also through other things that he brings into our lives. So we need to keep listening for God and talking with God. And in this miracle, we can realize that, we too need to sometimes, take those things that are blinding us and get rid of them. It's a blessing today to be able to share some miracles with you. And I look forward to, on Thursday, to being with you again. We look at 2 more of God's wonderful miracles and what we can learn from them. So please, again, join us here in our magic lab where we can learn about God's word and God's will for our lives. God bless you all. I have to go for today, but we'll see you on Thursday.